Now, as usual with trailers, if you're looking for someone to go through it scene by scene and break it all down for you and tell you the top 5 Easter eggs they think you missed, this isn't the video for you, because I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're a fan of the show and understand what you just saw in the trailer. However, if you want to hear what I think everything we saw in the trailer actually means, and how the show is going to end perhaps, and maybe even want to tell me your thoughts afterwards in the comments, well, then this is the video you're looking for. Anyway, as I think we've known was going to be the case all along, this show is not going to have a happy ending. What this trailer all but confirmed for me is that Kanan is not going to live through this show, and just when we start to think that Hera and him could be together, something is going to happen to Kanan that will assure Hera not only never leaves the rebellion, but becomes the General Syndulla we hear mentioned in Rogue One, meaning she will become more devoted to the rebellion than ever after Kanan dies. And, like it or not, one way or another, he does have to die in this show. As I've said before, when he got knighted in Season 2, it all but sealed his fate in my opinion, because now he was officially a Jedi, and we know there can be, or shouldn't be, another Jedi floating around during the time of the original trilogy, other than Obi-Wan and Yoda, who of course eventually will die. And if Kanan is your favorite character in the show, don't get mad at me for saying that he has to die, because guess what? He's my favorite character in the show too, but Yoda clearly says in Return of the Jedi to Luke that, "When gone am I, the last of the Jedi will you be," which means there's just no place in the galaxy for Kanan during this time period. However, there is always a chance Kanan gives up his Jedi ways, and maybe even takes on a more Bendu approach if you will, though I just don't see this being the case, mainly because I don't think we're going to see the Bendu again in this show. Though I think it would be great if in the next animated show, which I have to believe will be set between episodes 6 and 7, if we see Luke encounter the Bendu at some point. Then of course there's Ezra and this prophecy or whatever it is we're going to learn about, where he is obviously the Lothrat who, I'm going to guess, is supposed to somehow save Lothal, which is probably going to lead to him doing something stupid or acting against the wishes of the rest of the Ghost Crew, and perhaps the whole rebellion itself. In fact, I liked how they teased that Ezra may join up with Saw Gerrera and the Partisans because Mon Mothma's rebellion isn't willing to do what it takes to win the war. I also wonder, and kind of hope, that we see what happens to Saw that turns him into the man, or what's left of the man we see in Rogue One. In other words, I want to see the accident that leaves him in that condition, and I'd have to imagine somehow it will be connected to Ezra. Maybe whatever happens to Saw will even be Ezra's fault, or he too will be injured or even die in that accident. And then Kanan blames himself for letting Ezra go, and ends up getting himself killed too. And I know that sounds like a horrible end to the show, and one they likely will never go with, but then again, as I said, there likely isn't going to be a happy ending here. So the question then becomes, just how dark will it be? Then again, I personally don't think Ezra is going to die. As I've guessed in other videos, I think he gives up entirely on the Jedi ways at some point, and for some reason that will become clear in the show, and we'll see him again in the next animated show. And as I've also said before, I think it would be great if he falls to the dark side and, eventually, becomes an enemy of Luke Skywalker after Episode 6, which could be another part of the show I think a lot of us would love to see after the events of Return of the Jedi. And then of course there's all the stuff with the Mandalorians they showed us, including Bo-Katan and how she will be working with Sabine to lead their people against the Empire. And this I'm very excited for, because the story arcs involving the Mandalorians were always some of my favorites from the Clone Wars, not to mention, I think everyone loves Mandalorians. However, I again don't know how much of a happy ending this aspect of the show can have. I mean, I just don't know if the Mandalorians free themselves from the grasp of the Empire and start fighting alongside the Rebellion, because if they do, where were they during the original trilogy, unless they were fighting on a completely different front, if you will. More than likely, if they do more or less escape the clutches of the Empire, they will find themselves in the midst of a civil war, which could make for some great stories down the road, and again, could be part of a new show. And I think that's a possibility because there is absolutely no way Sabine dies in this last season. I'd be stunned if she doesn't show up again down the road and often, just like I'd be stunned if they actually do kill off Ezra, even though I personally wouldn't be opposed to it, and I think it would serve the story pretty well. However, these are the two young characters of the show that I think a lot of the younger viewers like and have attached themselves to, and what better way to keep those younger viewers watching and interested in Star Wars, especially as they get older, than to bring their favorite characters back in the next show. Then of course there's Zeb, who I think was in the trailer for a whole 2 seconds. Now, I honestly don't know what his fate will be, though I'd love to see him give his life to save Kallus at some point. I just think that'd be a great way to complete his story. Will they do something like that? Maybe, because I'm not sure where the character goes after this show, nor do I think he's the most popular character in the world, and one that there's a big future for in other media. Overall though, I thought this trailer was fantastic, as all Rebels trailers seem to be, and I am more than ready for this last season. I'm also happy about how much they are tying in Rogue One and making a very cohesive overall story in this time period. It's funny, I had my doubts about this show going in and thought it would be skewed too heavily towards the younger audience. And it is a cartoon on Disney XD after all, but I've been pleasantly surprised by it and I'm sad to see it come to an end with this last season. Though I am excited to see what comes next, especially if it is set after episode 6 and it is about Luke. That would be a dream come true for this lifelong fan of Luke Skywalker. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you thought of the trailer, how excited you are for this final season, what you thought of the show overall, and tell me your own predictions for how it will all end. So leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.